You want to talk about the scariest time in a consultant's business development process?
Sure.
So they have had a meeting or a call with a prospective client. Great conversation. They feel like they've answered all the questions and things are great. And then they hang up the phone, close the Zoom, walk out of the room.
It's in the bag, right? Feeling
Maybe,
good?
maybe not. Well, that's what they think. That's what you think when you first get in your car.
Killed
And then
it.
as you're driving, the doubt starts to creep in and you realize you're not really sure and you didn't really close it and you're just not quite sure what happens. And then you pop up in our client Slack and say, oh my gosh, I just had this great conversation, but now I'm panicking because I'm not sure I did all the right things. I think everybody's felt it, right? Everybody who's tried to work their way through that process.
Yeah. And you wonder, what are they talking about now?
Yes.
Once you've left the room, either literally or the proverbial meeting room on Zoom, and they often tell you, well, we're going to take it back and discuss internally. And you just kind of like take that at face value.
Mhm.
But what does that conversation look like? What are they actually discussing internally? And I think our contention here to you folks is that internal conversation, that's where your deal is either won or lost.
Mhm.
It's usually not won or lost in the meeting, in the proposal discussion, because typically that involves multiple people, right? And so chances are they're not all agreeing with each other while talking to you because they're all listening to you, and then they have to go back and discuss it. And so today I think we want to break down what happens in that room when you're gone, when they sit down and they go, so what do you guys think? And there's three questions in particular we're obviously going to summarize today. The three most important questions that the buying committee is asking when you're no longer in the room. And the answer to these questions really do determine whether you win or lose the deal. Shall we?
Let's do it.
Have we sold it enough?
We'll find out when they hang up.
Question one. Do they work with clients like us? Is this a specialist who works with organizations like ours, or is this a generalist trying to close a deal? In other words, are we right in their wheelhouse, or are we just one of their many different potential target clients?
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking for, you think?
Well, what they're looking for is understanding, right? They're looking for a solid feeling that you truly know what they're up against, that you truly understand not just the problem, not just the generic problem, but them. And so when you say, do they work with clients like us, that doesn't necessarily mean like a particular sector or a particular, kind of business. It could, but it also could mean, people who are facing the exact same challenges that we are. And they want to understand that you have positive experience in that space, because that's what's going to give them confidence that you understand them. And that's truly what everyone's looking for, right? Is to be seen and understood so that they have confidence that you can walk in and do something good on their behalf.
Yeah. It's like, I think everybody thinks to some extent that they're a bit of a special snowflake, right? And I think even did an episode at some point called Snowflake Syndrome. And it's true. Everybody's unique and every company's unique and all circumstances are unique and no two client situations are identical. That's absolutely true. And at the same time, when I'm talking to a consultant, I don't really want to be unique. I kind of want them to say, oh yeah, we see this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you go to the doctor and you profess some symptoms, you don't want the doctor to say, boy, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
I've been practicing medicine for 20 years. This is a new one on me. Like, nobody wants to hear that. You want to hear that, oh yeah, this is going around. Oh, okay. So it's not just me, right? And so as much as clients believe that they're unique, and they are unique, when it comes to solving a problem with a consultant, they want to be common. They want the situation to be something that you've not only you've done before, I think that's kind of table stakes, but that you do all the time. It's a thing that you do, not one of a menu of things that you might do once a year, but the thing that you always do. This is obviously a positioning exercise, right? If they perceive you to be a specialist in doing this thing for clients like them, if they perceive themselves to be in your wheelhouse, that's a really, really good thing. They feel comfortable with that, confident in that, versus if it feels like it's a little bit outside of your sphere, you're probably stretching a little bit. You might have done this once or twice before, not so confident in that. Question 2. Is this something that we need to solve now? Is this a now thing? In any client organization, there are immediate kind of burning problems. And there are things that get deferred next month, next quarter, next year. And it's not that the things that get deferred are not important. They often are. But the tyranny of the urgent is a real phenomenon, right? And so how immediate and how urgent is the problem that you're solving? And how much have you helped the client come to a level of awareness of the urgency? Or have you merely focused on why it's important and left it to the client to figure out if it's something they need to do now versus later?
This is an easy mistake to make because you walk in the room and the assumption is, well, the client gets it, right? Of course they understand. They wouldn't have this conversation with me if they didn't have some urgency around solving the problem. That's not always true. And it's important to know that's not always true. And even if it was true, they were feeling like the problem was urgent when they booked the meeting, doesn't necessarily mean that they are in a place where the organization is convinced of that. And so, the reason we're talking about these 3 questions is to help you understand what you can do to mitigate these being the questions that kill the deal. And in this particular case, it's about working with the client to really quantify why this is an urgent problem for them today. So this doesn't necessarily mean you have to walk in and, force that issue, convince them that that's the case. What you want to do is pull out from them what the challenge is, right? Why is this important? Why is this important now? What will happen if you don't solve this problem in the next X number of days, weeks, months? And, have them get really clear on what it means to them.
Yeah. There's this notion of, in economics, the idea of the rational choice theory, right? That all of modern economics is built on this assumption that the average person will make a rational choice that maximizes their benefit or utility. And this assumption's been questioned quite a bit in recent times, because how often do people make completely irrational decisions? And this is one of those examples where, many clients, we see this, among our clients and their clients, many organizations, individuals will make poor decisions and defer things to later that should be done now, but often not because they've thought through all the consequences of deferring, but because it's the easier thing to do. This feels like a lot. It feels like a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of money, and I don't really have the mental bandwidth to process this right now, so let's just defer it. And obviously they'll live to regret it, right? And so a big part of what you need to do in the sales conversation is, to Carrie's point, bring this to the surface. Why now? Why not later? And what are the consequences of not doing it now? Because they're likely not going to consider that on their own because it's uncomfortable, and they'd rather just bury it under the rug. And you essentially need to force that conversation, bring it to the surface. So when they go back and they have the conversation without you, it's like, hey, look, team, it's pretty clear we need to do something here. Not doing anything is not an option.
Yeah. So the second question is about the problem. Now we're going to get back to a question about you, right? Because it's you they're talking about when you leave the room. And what they really want to understand at this point is, what's different about this person, right? What are they going to do that's different than anybody else, or different than we've done up until now?
And I think it's really important to understand that the the average client typically will have made some attempts of their own before they hire a consultant. I mean, nobody, as much as we'd love to think that this is the case, the reality is nobody realizes they have a problem one day and then starts shopping for consultants the next day. Most rational buyers are going to make some attempt internally, try to solve it themselves, and then fail at that attempt before they take the step of engaging some kind of external third-party consulting firm or consultant. And that feels responsible, right? Because why go immediately out and spend money and engage in the disruption, bring on a consultant as a disruptive exercise? New person, not part of our team. What are they going to change? What's going to break? What are the consequences? All very disruptive. So I'd rather figure it out myself if I can. And only if I've proven to myself that I can't figure it out myself or the problem's becoming too expensive, do I then go and hire an external third party or consultant. But the question that I'm asking is, given that it's not a blank slate, what are they going to do differently than what we've already done? And this is especially true if I've hired consultants before. How do I know they're not going to come in and do the exact same things that have already been tried and failed? Because, well, I feel silly if I spend the money, engage in the disruption, spend the time working with a consultant, and they end up concluding that, oh yeah, those things don't work. Well, we already knew that.
Yeah. So, 3 questions that generally come hot on the heels of the conversation that you're having with your potential buyer, with your decision maker. I think the real question is, what's the difference between deals that close after those conversations, after those questions are asked, and the deals that don't?
The deals that close address these questions both in the positioning of the consultant and the offer of the consultant, and these themes are reinforced throughout the sales conversation. So before they even talk to you, they know that this is your specialization. They know this is your sweet spot. They know that this is a problem that you solve all the time. That's why they're talking to you. And through the conversation, they generate awareness around the urgency of the problem and how that problem is actually holding them back from accomplishing other things, and the consequences of not solving that problem. That awareness is generated through the conversation they have with you. And you highlight that you're not going to come in and do exactly what somebody else did or what they've already tried. You've got a fundamentally different approach to solving this problem than they've tried or that they've seen that they can get behind and they can believe in. And all that is established, both when you're not in the room via your marketing and positioning, reinforced when you're in the room sufficiently such that when you leave the room, they already know the answers.